But there's a little bit of gamesmanship there. See, they assume things, for example, there is a currently, it's not even part of the bill, but under current law, there is Medicare is supposed to cut reimbursements to doctors next year, doctors and hospitals both actually, by 21%. A 21% across the board reduction in Medicare reimbursements is supposed to go into effect next year. It's actually been supposed to go into effect since 2001. And every year Congress looks at it, realizes what a 21% cut in Medicare reimbursements would mean to Medicare, and says, we're not doing this, and puts it off for a year. Well, the Baucus bill simply assumes that Congress won't put it off anymore, that 21% reduction will simply take place, be a 21% cut in Medicare, in addition to the cuts in Medicare the bill makes, but they say that's not part of the bill, we don't have any responsibility for that, so we can count those 21% cuts as savings in the bill. That's what keeps it budget neutral going forward. Now, maybe they actually will cut 21% from Medicare next year. I have my doubts. And if they don't, that's, a couple $100 billion a year that they're going to have to, they're going to be running deficits under the bills. It's also going to cost you more in terms of higher insurance premiums. The Congressional Budget Office, once again, looked at the bills and said, if you say there can't be any lifetime cap on treatments, so they're going to have to provide unlimited amounts of treatments, and you're going to say they can't refuse people who are sick as insurance anymore, and you're going to have to bring in all these sick people into the pool and have to pay for them. That's going to raise premiums, and you're going to have all these new benefits that are mandated in. That's going to raise the cost of insurance. Surprise! This is not magic. You can't make people give more benefits and not charge more. So insurance premiums are going to go up. And particularly for young people, they are really in trouble. Because the bill also includes a provision called community rating, which says essentially that everyone has to be charged the same insurance premium, regardless of your health. So if you're 20 years old and in great health, never been sick a day in your life, you're a marathon runner, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you'll pay exactly the same premium as someone who's 65, weighs 400 pounds, can't get off their couch, sitting there eating potato chips, got stage 4 cancer, and smoking 6 packs a day. They'll all pay the same premium. Well, what's that mean? It means that they're going to bring down the premiums on the older, sicker person, and they're going to raise the premiums for the younger and healthier person. And in fact, estimates suggest that if you're under the age of 35 and you're in a state now outside of New England that don't already have community rating and guaranteed issue, and you don't have a lot of the mandates that are in there in your state, then your premiums will rise between 75 and 95% under these bills. So you're going to pay more taxes, more debt, and higher insurance premiums. Finally, I'm asked, what about rationing? Is this all going to lead to the rationing of care? Now, I do have to say, in fairness to the bill, in fairness to the president, and with all due respect to the governor from Alaska, there are no death panels in this bill. There are no mandatory euthanasia provisions. The big hubbub about the counseling, end-of-life counseling, was actually proposed by a Republican senator from Georgia, Johnny Isakson, to fund a provision that was put in place during the Bush administration. That said, there is clearly reason to be concerned about rationing down the road. Because just look at the numbers I was talking about in terms of cost. When you look at those costs going forward into the future, and you face the fact that under current law, now traditionally government spends about 21% of GDP in this country. We take in about 18% of GDP in taxes, which is why we run a budget deficit. That's traditional in this country. After all the bailouts and all the stuff that they've done during the last year of the Bush administration and the first year of the Obama administration, government this year will spend about 28% of GDP. Under current law, before we add this health care bill, Government is going, by 2050, government will consume 40% of GDP in this country. And if you add this health care bill in, it will consume 48% of GDP in this country. You can't keep that going. And if that's the case, then they are going to have to come back and cut care. And there's actually provisions that are being put in place for this. The president supports a separate bill, and again, fairly they can say it's not in this bill, it's a separate bill for something called IMAC. Another acronym. It stands for the Independent Medical Advisory Committee, which would essentially be a committee to start with Medicare and Medicaid that would make recommendations on what services to cut and what reimbursements to cut, and that would take effect automatically unless Congress overturns those. So this would ultimately, it has to, down the road, lead to some form of rationing of care. Can't do anything else. Well, lastly, is there an alternative? Because I'm asked that probably more than anything else. Is there something better? Well, in some ways, you can start with the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. I mean, as bad as the problems we have now, doing what the president wants to do would actually make it worse. So no action might be better than doing what he wants to do. But that's not good enough. Now, I was for health care reform when health care reform wasn't cool. Now, I was writing about it 20 years ago. The president always presents this false choice. You're either for his plan or you're for the status quo. Well, nothing could be farther from the truth. Market reformers have been advocating health care reform for years. And let me give you just two suggestions. There are many, but let me give you just two suggestions that I would do. First, let's move away from a health care system that is based on employer-provided health insurance. I mean, after all, why should your boss get to pick your health insurance? He doesn't get to choose what kind of homeowner's policy you have. He doesn't pick your auto insurance for you. Why is your boss in charge of your health insurance? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Actually, it comes out of a sort of an accident out of World War II. You had two problems going on simultaneously. You had a labor shortage because all the guys were over at the front, and you had wage price controls, which meant that the government couldn't, or the businesses couldn't compete for the labor that remained by raising wages. So they started getting around that by offering benefits like health insurance. And then along came the IRS in 1953, and they said, hey, that's a tax-free benefit. Well, that means that you have to pay taxes on wages, you don't have to pay taxes on insurance. Someone today paying a worker $50,000 and giving them a $10,000 insurance plan. Now, as far as the business is concerned, they're paying them $60,000. All they care about is the total cost of the compensation. But from the employer standpoint, he's only paying taxes on the $50,000. The $10,000 is tax-free to him. If the same employer were to turn around and say, look, I'm going to give you $60,000 in wages, go out and buy your own health insurance, the worker's suddenly going to have to pay taxes on $60,000 in wages. He's going to be worse off. So his incentive is to say, no, employer, keep the money, keep your wages, give me insurance instead. But that means your boss picks your insurance, and it means that if you lose your job, you'll lose your health insurance. Remember what I talked earlier? That's the big problem with the uninsured. They're cycling in and out of that job and insurance market. If we could get them their own insurance that they could keep for themselves their whole life, buy insurance, it goes with them from job to job, they never lose it. They don't lose their health insurance when they lose their job. Because they're not losing their insurance, they're staying insured. They then don't have problems with getting pre-existing conditions, so they don't have to keep getting medically underwritten every time they get a new insurance plan. It'll go a long, long way towards dealing with the problem of the uninsured. The way to do that is to give that worker the same tax break for buying his own health insurance as he currently gets for getting that employer-provided insurance. We need to change the tax incentive, move it away from employer-provided care to giving it to the individual so that they have the same privilege of buying individual insurance as for getting employer-provided care. And second, know, if you can find a cheaper insurance policy, you know, if you're living here, you know, right near the Georgia border, if you could find a cheaper insurance policy in Savannah, you should be able to buy it. Today, it's illegal to do that. Today, it's against the law for you to buy health insurance out of state. But people in Florida should be able to buy health insurance in Alabama or Georgia. Heck, they should be able to go online to Esurance and find the cheapest insurance policy in the country and buy it. You can do that with